correction. Daisy Dragon says, no, Anna, I disagree. She does mean to mispronounce her name, and she does mean it to be disrespectful. Well, we should throw her in
Whose
prison
name was
for it.
mispronounced?
Nancy Mace mispronouncing Kamala Harris's name and making the grave error of saying Kamala instead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a grave error. I think it's a petty, immature thing to continue to do.
Okay.
I think it should be beneath any adult.
I don't think she intentionally mispronounced her name, but whatever. Yeah. It's everyone can think of anything.
She already went through a news cycle of this like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago.
I know, but it's hard to remember because different people say it differently.
This person only says it this way. I literally
had to remember that it's Kamala because someone told me think of comma and then just say la.
That's what the kids at the DNC. Look, you're not trying to do anything on purpose.
No, I get it, but like
she is because she's a bad person.
Why is she such a toddler? I don't understand. Like, John has to treat her with such kid's clothes. He's like, no, honey, don't get in the way of the train. I'm roasting this other person. They're roasting this other person. Like, why are you simping for this? Like, it is immature. It's borderline racist. Surely you could call it a microaggression to say, I don't care how you want your name pronounced, right? This is a lady who will melt down for months on end about being called a birthing person, having to check a box that says, man, woman, non-binary or whatever. Oh, that's all crazy discrimination. But wanting somebody to pronounce your name correctly, oh, that's a bridge too far. Like, that's ridiculous. Your name is part of your identity. How people say it shows whether or not they respect you, right? Like, if I constantly called him Gavon over here, you would be like, hey, like, this dude's name's Gavin. And if I was like, well, I meant that, dude, chill. Oh my God, why are you being such a cancel culture warrior? Loser. Like, obviously I just made a petty mistake, and then 2 weeks later I called him Gavon again. You're gonna be like, well, it's a really hard name to get right. Like, not really. Kamala's not that hard of a name to get right either.
It's really not that hard. I think it's funny, and it's like, well, different people say it different ways. I'm like, yeah, some people mispronounce it. There's only one way to pronounce it, which is the way it is pronounced. And again, it's not the biggest issue in the world. I think some people, if they're melting down about it every time they hear someone say it wrong, like, okay, calm down. It's not the #1 issue afflicting the country right now. But yeah, if you're a freaking news person, if your job is in media, and you're still saying Kamala or Kamala or whatever, like, come on, bro. It's your job to get this right. This is the nominee of the Democratic Party, most likely our next president. It's not that hard.
And they are so wrong. Okay, I'll stop. But it's true, though. They're wrong. They're so wrong with this. So let's talk about the Kamala Harris mispronunciation situation. So nuance. There's a little bit of nuance missing from this conversation. It's not a you're on this side or you're on that side, right? Let's consider all the layers to this. Is that person a bad person, that woman that has been mispronouncing Kamala Harris's name? Absolutely, I'd agree with that. Is it feasible that she is purposely doing it? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if she is doing it intentionally. However, is it also equally feasible that she is mistakenly mispronouncing her name? Absolutely as well. And because of the fact that she could be doing it by accident as well as on purpose, I would refrain from going after her and just conclusively saying that she's doing it on purpose. And even if you do that, to deny that there's any reason why she would be unintentionally mistaking the name is absolutely silly. But you can only come to that conclusion when you actually look at the details and the nuance, right? So for example, if you look at it on a surface level, it's not that difficult to pronounce her name. That is true. Kamala. Comma like a comma in a sentence, la like la, whatever, right? It's actually not that difficult. But let me give you an analogy where something that seemingly is easy can still be problematic. And this is something a lot of people, many of you may not have considered. I hate red signal lights on cars because it is much more dangerous than yellow signal lights or orange or amber signal lights on cars. Now, some people would disagree with me because they would look at a car that's signaling to turn that has a red blinker and they would say it's very easy. Right? It's very easy to see. Look, you can clearly see they're making a right turn or a left turn, right? And that is true. If I'm actually focused entirely on this vehicle's lights, it is very easy to tell. However, that's not the way it works in reality. When you're driving, I'm focusing on a lot of different things. Where I'm going, the road conditions, the car in front of me, behind me, to the right of me, my speed, hey, is that a police officer over there? A lot of things going on, right? Other than just one random vehicle. So that is the beauty of the amber lights, because there's really no other light that would be amber. And because of that, you can pick up on it in your peripheral vision. So even if I'm not looking at your car, I'm looking straight ahead in my peripheral vision, I could see that amber blinking and I know, hey, that person's signaling to turn. Now, if you got a red blinker now, if I'm not looking at your car, I don't know if you're braking or you're turning, right? It's very easy if I'm focused on your car, but if I'm not focused on your car, I'm just going to see red lights flashing as I do the whole time while you're braking. You brake and it flashes, right? You turn right or left and it's flashing. The simplicity of it really comes from when I turn and actually look at it, right? But again, that's not how things work when you're driving. So if you do a surface level analysis and I'm sitting here trying to teach you how to say her name, in that context, it's not that difficult. If I say to you, hey, it's Kamala, right? That's very easy. And if we were robots or androids, that'd be the end of it. But unfortunately, we're not. So what does that mean? It means you can sit here and I can tell you how to pronounce it and you can pick it up very easily, no problem whatsoever. And then you can go through life and listen to all these people who are intentionally mispronouncing it, also accidentally mispronouncing it, and also pronouncing it the correct way. Now, being that you're human and not an android, all that information it leaves a stain on the brain, shall we say. So somewhere in your brain is multiple pronunciations of this person's name. And considering that I'm sure the average person has much more important things to focus on or worry about than pronouncing her name right, all these different pronunciations just ends up being noise in your brain. So now when you want to say her name, it's really difficult to reliably pull the right pronunciation from your brain unless you expend a certain level of effort, right? You've got to take all this mess in your brain and try to be like, what was it again? And the thing about it is when you're speaking freely, how do you interject that thought process of like, which one is it? No, you're going to naturally spit out whatever naturally comes out. And that's definitely going to be influenced by how you've heard the name pronounced. Now, I speak as a person who has had these issues myself. I'm a person who, I don't like Kamala Harris, but because I like truth and I have integrity, I found myself defending her a lot because she has been so slandered and smeared by so many people, whether it's from the left or the right, even liberal media. They're so dishonest that I end up defending her, even though I don't like her. But I don't like her based on reality. A lot of these people are just making stuff up. So, with that being the case, if I'm the one who, even though I don't like her, I still will defend her if people are saying things wrong, right? She didn't really say this or whatever, right? So, I'm not the one who's going to purposely mispronounce her name. In fact, I can tell you for a fact, I have spent considerable amount of energy trying to keep it right. I know I've gotten it wrong more than a few times. I think I'm getting better. But it takes a lot of energy to get it right. Again, not because it's complicated, right? That's the nuance. It's not that it's complicated, right, in itself, right, comma, la, right? But again, that's a very simplistic surface level thing where I'm now thinking about it, having a discussion about it, and I'm thinking, okay, comma, la, right? But in terms of what pops out of your brain, right? That's not how things pop out when you speak, right? You're not sitting there analyzing every single word, right? You just flow. Right? And that's how you misspeak, right? That's a thing that happens. People misspeak, call someone's name the wrong name, or mix up a detail, or create a grammatical, there you go. Create like a grammatical error. So even the way I say grammatical, so I'm still like struggling over that. See, that's the kind of thing that happens as a human, right? So as a human that is fallible and has this mushy brain between our ears, it's potentially challenging to reliably pull Kamala, you know what I mean? Like, how's he gonna do that? Then sometimes you're going to get potentially the wrong pronunciation unless you sit down and like practice it. Like if you sit down there, so that could be an argument. If you're a journalist and you know you're struggling with it, I do agree, communication is your job. So if that's something you struggle with, I, as a professional journalist, I would actually spend time practicing to pronounce it correctly. So if you want to make that argument, I could give that argument credit. But beyond that, I can see legitimate reasons why even someone as bad as, Nancy Grace or whatever, she could be accidentally mispronouncing it. At the same time, I see that many on the right are probably intentionally doing so. I have yet another example. So I had to do a presentation some years ago, and it was regarding a particular Lamborghini car that overwhelmingly is mispronounced. And in communications, right, your job is communication, so you should be accurate in whatever you're saying. So I went on a mission to find out the correct pronunciation of the name of this car, and I took a lot of time. It was very difficult for me because I've been listening to people mispronounce this car for years. So even though I knew the correct way and it wasn't really that difficult in itself, it was difficult because of competing versions of the pronunciation that were in my brain as well. I can't, just because I know the correct way to pronounce it, that doesn't automatically just remove all the other versions of it that's in my brain, right? Every time someone says the name incorrectly, it imprints data in my brain, right? And that data is still there even if I know the correct way. So the name of the vehicle, the model of the Lamborghini is I'll pronounce it the wrong way, is the Murcielago, right? And I think the rap community have a big part to do with that. But they're always talking, I got the Lamborghini Murcielago, I got the Murcielago. The thing that's interesting is, just like with Kamala Harris's name, it's actually not difficult to pronounce it properly. I mean, it begins M-U-R. There's no word in the English language with M-U-R that sounds mur, right? M-U-R would go mur, right? And that's really how the word is supposed to be pronounced. So it's murciélago. So even though I know the correct way to pronounce it, and I took the time to learn and practice it, it was very difficult to, again, retrain my brain. And then even after I got good at it, I would hear people mispronounce it after I learned the right way, and that would compete with the correct pronunciation that was in my brain. This is the same kind of effect with Kamala Harris. You got all these people walk around, Kamala. If you're in a right-wing bubble, for sure, you're hearing Kamala, Kamabla, all these kinds of things. And then, you have all these, I'll call them data entries in your brain of Kamala, right? And then you have like 3 or 4 of them of Kamala, right? So when you're speaking naturally, if you don't pause before you say her name to sort of clean up the mess in your brain and be like, okay, which is the right one, right? Then the pronunciation that will naturally flow is probably going to be the one that has the most imprints in your brain. And again, every time someone says it the wrong way, it's stored in your brain somewhere, right? Again, we're not robots. So there's no way you can automatically, every time someone says it wrong, you can recognize it as wrong and then just delete it or something. It's going to be there, right? You cannot change the potential impact of a lot of wrong data in your brain, even if you also have the correct data in your brain, right? It would be very challenging and very difficult to really pronounce it correctly. So anyone on the right who is pronouncing her name properly should get a lot of props, because if you really want to pronounce it properly, it will take considerable effort. So for someone to be taking considerable effort to pronounce the name of your political opponent, I think that says a lot about their character. So something to look out for. The other issue is calling it racist. Sure, I'm sure some people are doing it because of racism. Others, you know, they're in their little bubbles and everyone they talk to is saying it the wrong way. So, you know, predominantly in their brain is an impression of this wrong pronunciation. So regardless of their intentions or feelings about her, naturally when they try to say her name, they're going to say it the way people around them say it all the time, right? That's just a natural thing. So for a right-winger to pronounce her name properly is probably going to require more effort, significantly more effort than everybody else, because they, again, are in a bubble that's bombarded with the wrong pronunciation. So while we can expect many of them to mispronounce it intentionally, we have to also acknowledge that it's more difficult for them to pronounce it the correct way if they wanted to. So because we can't read minds, I can't know, whether someone's doing it on purpose or by accident, I would be a little bit cautious about going in on them. I mean, it depends. I mean, if you're saying Kamala or whatever Trump was saying, it's like, okay, right? If it's that overt, then it's kind of like, okay, you're playing games. But someone saying Kamala or whatever, ironically, it's the same thing like when you call somebody racist. You can't know someone's racist unless they do something overtly and clearly racist, because you can't read their minds, right? This is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.